Thank you so much for your patience, sir. Let's start with the situation where you are. What is it like there, and just how dire is it?
Good evening, and good evening to the listeners as well. It is a really, really tough situation. We had 2 nights of extensive attacks in the city, explosions. Tonight has not been different, so we're expecting a really bad night again. Although there's not really been, explosions in the residential and civilian areas, you never know what could happen. Some of the planes that have been shot down have gone into some of the high-rise buildings. So it is a really dangerous situation, and people, of course, feel it's all doom and gloom.
What's the status of your safety as well as those at the embassy?
Well, we are a core staff that remains. I am talking to you from the residence, so you'll probably hear from time to time the alarms go off, and then we all run down into the basement. So hopefully we are protected there. Another colleague of mine is staying in the city, also with his family, wife and 2 children. I am with my wife and 3 boys. So it's not an easy place. We are nervous, we are scared, but it is the place we're supposed to be now.
Let's talk about the South Africans there. How many have reached out to the embassy, and do we know of any fatalities?
Altogether, I would say about 50 South Africans. We have worked with more than 100 other African students as well, so quite a number. And most of them, I think, have now left the universities. Many of them are either at the border or close to the border. It's a fluctuating situation, so it changes all the time. The one moment the bus is going to this border, the next it's going to another border. So it's a very difficult situation in that regard as well. But we are tracking. We are in close contact with all of them. And just a correction that we have never said that South Africa is not evacuating its citizens. We are fully engaged. We are here. We are operational. We have been here from day one, 20 hours, 24 hours a day, and assisting our students and assisting our fellow South Africans.
But just how easy or difficult is it to contact the embassy? Because some of the South Africans we've spoken to are quite emotional, saying that, basically pleading with the South African government to get them out of Ukraine, and some are complaining about racism at the borders. Yeah,
those are 2 questions. The first one with regards to getting them out is that we are getting them out at this stage in terms of phase 1, getting them out of Ukraine. To safety. And for that, we've got a team of people, volunteers that are also assisting and working the telephones. Phase 2 will probably be what they actually are complaining about, and this is flying back to South Africa. And this is where we will then need, people to assist us in that regard, maybe with some financing and more. For the students to be flown, because it's either fly back to South Africa or be accommodated in Europe, and so both of those options are not really good options. With regards to the border, again a fluctuating situation, but the numbers keep on growing. The ambassador from Hungary told me that there's about 21,000 people on their border. There's way more at the border of Poland, and of course everybody gets stuck there. There were some issues on the border itself where Ukraine has prioritized women and children from Ukraine, and of course, if the moment there's a priority list, the foreigners are not going to be assisted in that regard. And so some of our students got stuck in no man's land between Poland and Ukraine. But we got our ambassador in Poland to move there, and she managed to get some of the students through this late afternoon, and we are very grateful for that. So there are still people in the lines. We also found that a number of students have gone now, or we have helped them to get through the border with Hungary. So they have gone through, and a couple of students have been able to go through the border in Romania, as well as through Moldova and then through Romania.
Are there any talks with the Department of International Relations to rope in the army, the SANDF, in terms of getting those that want to come back to the country as soon as possible?
Yeah, that has never been on the cards. And I don't think there's precedent for the South African military to be involved in any of those or official kind of evacuations. Their role to date has been in Africa, and there's a couple of instances. I think the last one was the Libyan one. But that has not been on the cards, and that is what makes it very difficult, and where we have to rely on our friends and you know, just contacts in the embassy and in the and in Ukraine itself as well.
Mr. Groenewald, I don't know if you can maybe speak to what you know around the possible meeting that's supposed to take place in Belarus.
Yeah, we've only also seen it in the media, but we are very happy to hear about it. It provides hope for everybody living in Ukraine, and we really hope that this can be to a ceasefire. We are hearing that there are talks about a ceasefire. That while this discussion is taking place, that there will be a ceasefire. It's going to be very important because at this stage, there are curfews in most of the big cities. So there's no moving out that you can, you know, for example, the embassy staff are not in the same building. So for us to get to the same building, we need an hour or two at least to get together. When I see the embassy is not operational, nothing is operational in Kiev at this stage because of the curfew. So that break will or lull in a possible conflict would be great. To get people out that are, you know, that really needs to get out. And we are just hoping that the discussion, that the parties will get together and it will be the start of a fruitful dialogue that would lead to, you know, to peace, full-on peace.
Yeah. Mr. Groenewald, as it stands, what is the access like to food, medical supplies?
Yeah, I've heard that there had been a hospital that was hit at some stage. What I'm also hearing from the student is that some of the smaller universities are more quiet, or the towns where they are at are more quiet, and that they have access to the shops and they can buy things, buy water, get petrol, and so on. In Kiev, from what I'm seeing, there's no access. Nobody is anywhere. You're not allowed to go out on the street. It's very dangerous. They're talking about certain saboteurs. They're talking about civilians with guns. They're talking about soldiers in the street. So it's not advisable, and there's a total curfew on everybody in Kiev. So nothing is working.
So as it stands, it seems the situation is quite bad in Kiev. Are we seeing overall that the situation is stabilizing or getting worse?
Well, it's difficult to say. I mean, it's difficult to measure. I think the different cities are totally different. But if I should measure it in Kiev, in the last 3 days, it's become, you know, quite heavy. The explosions and the activities, the military activities that you hear at night, and in the morning you wake up with this cordite smell in the air. And so I would say in the last 3 nights it's been really tough. And before that, so there has been a certain escalation. If you look at the media, at people saying that the military is moving closer to Kiev, that then would make sense. But a sort of a dramatic increase with troops in the street, that we have not seen, or I have not seen it. It seems that at night it's a shooting, and then the next day there's a sort of a lull, and then at night it starts again.
Talk to me about those evenings, Mr. Groenewald. I mean, I can only imagine what you, other South Africans, other residents of Ukraine are going through in the evenings when that shooting out begins. Can you just describe it for us?
Yeah, it's very scary. What actually happens, it's quiet, and then all of a sudden you would hear these harrowing alarms go off, and it's, you know, those worst alarms that you have seen on TV, you know, the Second World War kind of thing, where the alarms go off and it has this particular sound, and then later on, after that, you will hear the explosions. That's the kind of thing that happens from time to time. Or you would find on your on media or on WhatsApp people saying, you know, this is what is happening in their region, or they show videos. And you know, at night the ghosts come out, and that's when you are scared. You know, it seems that it's easier to handle these kind of things in daytime. None of us have really been in a war situation that you can compare it, or, you know, speak about previous incidences of this kind. So it is scary. And to have your family with you makes it even more scary, because you are responsible for them. But in the end, you know, again, like I said, this is where we're at now, and our duty is to look after the South Africans and make sure that we stand strong and ready for them as well.
Mm. Has President Cyril Ramaphosa made contact with you?
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage. And the Dirco minister?
Yeah, we have spoken to the ministry a number of times. I speak to the officials, to everybody in different sections, from consular to policy to geographical desk, to, you know, everybody almost every half an hour to coordinate. So it's been a really helpful process from South Africa, including from other departments. I've received phone calls from Parliament. The portfolio committee has spoken to me. And I've also, so the support has really been good. And of course, from regular people in South Africa phoning us and speaking to us on this matter, praying for us, and just sending their thoughts and their blessings and support to us. It's been great. Mm. Really supportive.
Yeah, just lastly, Mr. Groenewald, any words, you know, any message you have for those loved ones who are here in South Africa, who have loved ones there in the Ukraine?
Just to say that we are here. I've given my own personal cell phone on TV. I've given it on Dirco has made it available. It's on the Facebook, and just to know that I'm also a father of young children and one son at university. I have regard all these kids in this country to be the South African children to be mine. So I am really serious about protecting them, making sure that they get back home safe, and ensuring that you know, at the end of the time that there are no casualties to anybody. And you asked before if there have been any casualties. We are not aware of any casualties at this stage, and we will continue and with the ambassadors also at the neighboring countries in Poland and Hungary now coming in. The team is bigger, so there are more parents to protect the children of South Africa and, of course, look after the citizens of South Africa.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. That is Mr. Andre Groenewald, South Africa's ambassador to the Ukraine.